What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about how to attract the right clients, number one. But number two, what would you do? What would you do if you keep getting the wrong clients coming into your funnels and sales pipeline? So this is a big issue. So how do we address this? What's going on, Awais? Welcome back.
What's going on, Henry? Thank you, man. Thanks. Glad to be back.
Today doesn't feel
Fired
like
up for this.
Yeah, today doesn't feel like a Monday, dude. It feels like a Thursday. I'm not gonna lie. I had to like double check. I'm like, is this a what would you do if day? Oh man. So here's a big problem that I see a lot of my clients dealing with. Reason why they come on board on the first place, but they have a great product, they have a great service, but they get the wrong people. They're attracting the wrong people through social media, through ads, through things like that. And when they get on, whether it be a phone call or a Zoom call with these prospects, 9 times out of 10, they're kicking a tire down the street. They're not really serious about purchasing. They can't afford my clients. And sometimes my client onboards a specific client and they turn out to be time and energy vampires. We all have clients like that in the past, right? So how the hell do we fix this so that we can actually get the right people down our pipeline? So that's today's topic of conversation. And I want to encourage everybody that's watching this live today to join in, ask some questions. We're here for the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. So definitely want to have this conversation out in the open and have that open dialogue. So, you know, it comes easy for us always to kind of see these things, and we're a lot more sensitive to these things, obviously, because of our line of work. But what do you say to the business owner that is an expert in their own field, right? They're not the marketer. They're not the brander, right? They don't have that background, right? It's so easy to get caught up or not see some of the things that we see.
Exactly. Look, I always go to business performance. At the end of the day, to me, business performance is where the entrepreneur, where the business owner is going to be able to see what they're doing is working or what they're doing is working against them. So I asked them, just take a look at how much each client is costing you to acquire. One, how much is it costing you to fulfill that particular client's business? And is that client profitable?
Interesting.
And is there, so again, you know, I asked them about the numbers, be a little analytical about it. And if they start telling me I don't know, is that really the type of client that I want to work with? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If they don't have if they don't have a good pulse on their financial performance, I don't know if that's going to be a good client for me, because do they have a good know-how or good information around their capital to be able to say, okay, well, Awais, you know, now our next milestone's coming up. Let me go ahead and pay you. So anyways, bottom line is that I'd have them take a look at and analyze their financial performance on a per client basis and say, okay, well, this client to me is worth this much. This client to me is costing me this much. And well, if for some reason, or if for one reason or another, they're acquiring clients and they're acquiring the type of business that's actually costing them more to fulfill than it is to profit from, they need They need to go back and take a look at what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's where I come in and try to figure out and try to diagnose whether it's an issue of is there a product market fit or a service market fit, right?
Yeah.
So we're going into too far into the solution, but again, we try to figure out is it an issue with the type of clients and the type of business that they're attracting.
Yeah. That's a great point. I never really looked at it from that point of view before. I like that approach. I think it's important to study that as a business owner and to really get a better understanding of that, because if they're not a profitable client, then we got to steer away from attracting that type of client. Amy's in the house. What's going on, Amy? Welcome back. So there's a couple of things that I like to look at from a branding point of view that I think will help the audience today get an understanding of what might be happening. That's bringing in these types of clients. And the first thing that I like to take a peek at is positioning. How are they positioned in the marketplace? So what is positioning, Awais? Give them a quick positioning 101 on what do I mean by positioning?
So the way that I like to define positioning is, of course, what is the value that you're bringing to the table, and how is that different in relation to some of your industry counterparts, your competitors?
Exactly.
So that, like, that's the way that I like to simplify it.
Yeah, it's your point of difference.
Yeah.
And that trickles down into a couple different categories. One being your tone of voice. Again, what makes you what about your product makes it better?
Yeah.
Right? That's very important. What makes your service, because there's 1,000 plumbers in town, right? Why do I call this guy all the time?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that comes into that. There's a lot of different things: customer experience, personality.
Yeah. Or if you have a service offering, the best way to ask yourself, or like the way that I like to challenge others, I'll challenge you with this. So how are you approaching branding differently? And it's the same thing. I could ask a legal expert, well, how are you approaching this differently from some of the other firms, right? Yeah. So that is a good way to start getting yourself to start thinking of how to differentiate yourself, how to set yourself apart from some of your competitors.
Absolutely. And I think that's really going to set the tone for the second piece, which is messaging. Right? What message are you sending out there? Are you like Dr. Doomsday? And that's all you put out there is like, what could go wrong? That's a marketing tactic, right? Yeah. You got to throw salt on the wounds.
Yeah.
Right? You got to let them see the pain. Right? Chances are they're already experiencing the pain. That's why they're reaching out to you.
Exactly.
But what if that's all you put out? Right? I'd run like I'd run from it like the plague, because it's like, all right, it's just one doomsday message after the next. Like, where's the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah.
Right? Give us another example, Awais. Like another piece of messaging that's going to get the wrong client coming down the pike.
Well, I'm going to give an example, or I'm going to tie this into what you were just talking about the doom and gloom, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with addressing the challenges or the shared challenges of your ideal clients.
I think it's a must.
Reframe it. Of course, it's absolute must. But reframe it in the form of empathy. I always say this: empathy is a building block to trust. And people will listen to you if they like you. People will buy from you if they trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you need to get people to trust. And the way you do that is using the building blocks of empathy by saying, we understand that customers like you or clients like you encounter these types of challenges. We recognize that you need to overcome this, right? So now I'm getting into a little bit of the weeds here, but again, express empathy rather than just talk about here are all the challenges and it's just doom and gloom all throughout. That's fear-based selling. You might be able to get 1 or 2 engagements out of it, but for long-term play, again, I talk about the long-term play on branding. Is that the type of reputation that you want to develop, and is that the type of following that you want to have?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
because again, you're going to attract who you are.
What you project.
You know,
Yeah.
your frequency.
What you project, you're going to attract.
Yeah, like frequencies will be attracted to the same type of frequencies. Some people, you know, they vibrate at a higher frequency and they're going to attract a higher frequency type of client. Then there's low frequency, and we all know what that kind of frequency attracts as well. And that's something that we really need to pay attention to, right? So again, to your empathy point, you know, what if we focused on the outcome that the person reaching out to you is looking to accomplish, and focus our energies there and paint that picture? I think that's something like a great question to ask is, where do you see this business in a year? How could you paint this picture? How would you paint this picture a year from now? Having it be very close to your imagination.
Yeah.
Right.
Or,
and then
what does a successful outcome look like?
Yeah. What does success look like a year from now? That's an easy way of putting it. Right. We got a visitor in the background. What's going on, Fratello? You stealing my thunder? He's literally like looking in the camera. Michelle here says, do your homework before you engage with the prospective client. Find a common hobby, interest, or event that you can lead the call with. Yeah, it's very important. Like, you know, when people book brand assessments with me, I have a questionnaire that goes out, and that gives me a lot of insight on who that person is so that I could do my research prior to the call. You know, I'm looking at their social media. I'm Googling their name, seeing what pops up. I'm looking at the concerns that they have based on the answers that they are filling out. And that's extremely important. So to have that well-informed conversation once you meet with them is huge. You know, it'll definitely lead the conversation in a way better fashion than you coming in there cold turkey.
True.
Yeah. And then last but not least, guys, what's your visual aesthetics look like? I got a funny story for you. And I kind of mentioned it on our last call, but I'll say it again for those that might not have caught that. There's probably 40 or 50 inquiries that come in a week to get on the Brand Doctor podcast. And 95% of them all get dismissed by me because of the way they approach me and their visual aesthetic being subpar. What do I mean by that? So there's this thing called a one sheet. Typically, a lot of people that want to go on a podcast circuit or want to get on podcasts, they'll get this one sheet created. And it's like a bio, but it's a little bit more designed rather than just sending a Word doc out. And 98% of the one sheets I see are just, I'm sorry, they're trash. They're just really poor designed. And it looks like they just whipped it up. Like my 4-year-old whipped it up in preschool class. Right. This guy, well, it was a publicist that reached out to me and they said, Henry, we got a guy that I think would be a great fit for your show. He's got a book coming out in February. I was like this close to saying no. And I said, let me just open up this one sheet. Let me see what's going on here. I opened up the one sheet and within 15 seconds, I was like, this guy's coming on the show. This thing was so polished. I was blown away. And I think I might even have a way to share this screen with you, actually, that I think will. All right. So I'm going to move me. Right. Punch this down. Right. Look at how awesome this design is.
Yeah.
It is so clean. It gives me interview questions to ask him. Like really taking the heavy lifting.
It's a good idea. I like that. I like the fact that, like, he's already giving you some pointed questions for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to myself, this guy's coming on the show immediately. And I told him today when we recorded the episode, I said, dude, you had me at your one sheet. I barely read it. And I was like, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. And then when I read and I realized what the book was about, and I appreciate the substance, I said, this is a perfect fit. So when you have a higher quality visual aesthetic, that's going to set a tone. That's really going to say something about you before you even open your mouth. Yeah. And I just wish more people would understand that.
Yeah, it creates that first impression is a lasting impression, right? So if it's the visual appeal of anything that you're putting together or any of your marketing materials, I always, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, that's what's representing you in your absence.
Yes, exactly.
You receive that one pager or that single sheet, whatever it is. When you receive that, he wasn't there representing himself.
No.
It did all the speaking for him.
Yes. And that's something that we really need to pay attention to. I'll give you another example. Let me see. All right, let me share screen with you guys real quick. So, let's see if I could get you a better shot. So this is my one sheet. So I want to take it looks a little blurry because I got it like super zoomed in, but this is the one sheet that I send out to people to be on their show, right? So again, professional image of me, how Henry can provide value to your audience, areas of expertise, potential topics of discussion, potential interview questions, Henry's bio and backstory. Then they can actually click on this and watch the video. A little bit about my show. And then these are all clickable. They can click on all these icons and go right to my social media so they can check me out. And Frankie had those hyperlinks on his as well. So it was really easy for me to go to his social channels. And then I leave with, a quote that hell, that could be the whole topic of conversation on their show, right? The quality of your brand will determine the quality of your clients, and the quality of your clients will determine the quality of your life, period.
Yeah.
Right? So
you're leaving the guessing games out of it, man. I mean, it's just it gives them so much just by looking at that. It gives them an idea of how they can position that entire conversation.
yeah. And that's what I'm trying to get across today. There's a reason why these lower quality clients are coming to you. Something is off. Something is off. So that's what we want to get to the bottom of. And what we're going to do on Wednesday's live stream is share with you how to attract the right clients. Now I'm going to give you, so there's a couple of things that we wanted to, I just want to make sure that everybody here gets the takeaway of today's video. So nobody says, well, that's your title, but you didn't really deliver. Okay. We did, but at a high level. What we're telling you to focus in on is your positioning in the market, the messaging that you're putting out, and the visual aesthetics that's representing you when you don't have the chance to speak. Okay. On Wednesday, we're going to help you with the how-to. So how are you going to position yourself? How are you going to create that message? And how are you going to structure your visual aesthetic so that it speaks to the clients that you truly want to talk to, that truly want to work with, so that you don't get dictators as a client. You don't get people that can't afford your product or service. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. I just want to, before we wrap up, I see a bunch of people still here. Is there any questions in particular that you want us to address when it comes to this stuff? If not, we'll wrap and we'll see you on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. But what I want to know also, if you don't have any questions, are what's your biggest takeaway from today's topic? What's your biggest takeaway? That's something that I'm interested in hearing. Because again, we take things for, let me speak for myself. I don't want to put words in your mouth always. Sometimes I take for granted my branding and design understanding. And I think that everybody should know that. And that's not necessarily the case. Okay, so we got a great question. How do I ensure that my brand is aligned to the kind of client I want to attract? That's a great question. Great question.
Yeah.
Too bad I didn't know who it was. Can tell us who you are. It's just showing up, Facebook user. How would you address that, Oase?
I think I want to address that on Wednesday. Because I think we're going to release that. Yeah. Because that, I think we're going to give away too much right now, and not going to have enough, or it's going to be more relevant for Wednesday's conversation. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So,
okay.
it's
Priyanka.
Let's take a look again.
Yeah, it's Priyanka. Okay. So here's a great, so I won't give too much away, but I don't want to leave him hanging another day and a half. Here's what I would say, Priyanka. Are you attracting the type of clients that you enjoy working with? If the answer is no, then we know that there's a misalignment. If the answer is yes, then we know whatever it is that we're doing is making sense to that particular client. Now, here's another thing. What I would do is I would go to clients, whether you're currently working with them or have worked with them in the past, and ask them, out of all the fill in the blank service provider, why did you choose me to run with? There's a lot of gold in that answer. And what I would do is I would take note on the question. I would take note on what they say, and then I would use that in my social media posts. right?
Absolutely.
Totally.
So now you're
Totally.
jumping to Wednesday. So I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm gonna leave it. I just wanted to.
I wanna address something. So say his name one more time. I'm sorry. I didn't get his name or her name.
Priyankar.
Priyankar. Okay. So I'm gonna tie this back to what we opened with is the financial performance. All right. So how do you know if you're attracting the right client that is a fit for your business or clients that are a good fit for your business? Quantify your time, quantify the amount of resources that you're putting into that client. At the end of the day, that's going to tell you if it's the right type of client, how much of your time that they're taking up.
That's a great question. I mean, you got to know your numbers, right?
That's it. You're in the business of making money. If it's a for-profit,
that's why you're in business,
even
right?
if it's a nonprofit, even nonprofits have to generate revenue
Absolutely.
in one way or the other, right?
Absolutely.
So again, you got to go back to the numbers.
Yeah. And that's why, there's tools out there like Time Doctor, where if you are managing a team, you could use Time Doctor to track the minutes that your team members are working. So you know exactly how much time it's taking to render that particular service. And then you do the math, right? Yeah. And then also you can, if you don't have a team and you're just a consultant, you can say, all right, well, I charged X, I spent this amount of time, do some division, and you'll know real quick whether or not it's worth your time. I've done this exercise with clients in the past, and it come out to be like $150 an hour. I go, shit, you can go get a job for that. Go get a job for $150 an hour. And don't worry about all the headache of running a business.
Overhead and all that. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I'm saying there's nothing wrong with that. That's another thing, guys. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But if that's not why you're in business, well, then there is a problem, right? I just don't want to point fingers. I don't want everybody to say like, Henry, well, that's your point of view, or that's your, like, no, it's your life. If it makes sense to you, run that program. But for me, $150 an hour, it sounds like a lot to a lot of people, but for me, it's not what's what I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And that's just me.
Different goals. But it comes down to the fact that you're measuring how much input and how much output you're getting. And if it makes sense for you to continue to attract that type of a client and continue to conduct business that way, right? I mean, it might be that you were charging a specific rate end of 2019. Things shifted, and you recognized that as that shift happens, you need to maybe elevate, or you need to raise your rates. Yep. Perfectly fine.
Too many people last year told me your branding on demand prices are too low. What are you doing? You're giving away the farm. Doesn't make sense.
There you go. Yeah.
And
so
first of the year I raised those prices.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good timing, but the universe was finally registering with me. And I said, no, I gotta raise my rates on a couple different levels. Yeah. But again, I think another thing is, and this is a topic for another story, is I wouldn't get too caught up in pricing per hour,
Oh, yeah. No.
Don't fall into that trap. Don't fall into that trap.
Now, I will say this. I'll say this. When I was first starting out, obviously my dad, the Skeptic, he's an entrepreneur himself and numbers guy, of course, and he's constantly challenged me since then. It's like, okay, so how much was this project? How long did this take you? Mm-hmm. Okay, so think about it. How much did you make by the hour? I don't think you made enough by the hour. It's just like, the guy's been in business for 30 plus years, and he's just sitting there and dissecting my entire business. and each project is saying, okay, well, he's like, and of course he's obviously wants me to do better, but he's like, look, is this really a profitable endeavor, or what do you need to do differently? So obviously he's trying to get me to go in that particular direction. And then just, very blessed to have people like that around me. Like a client of mine that I've had for about 10 years, he's just so numbers oriented that he knows by the square inch of how much each space of his office space is being allocated to a specific project. So meaning he's got, obviously the person using that desk, how often that desk is. I mean, like, he's so data driven, man. And that's great. Like, that to me is like, yeah, exactly. So that, and obviously the fact that they went from a small aisle of 2 small offices, narrow offices, to this, $100 million business where they've got probably like 120 or 150 plus employees, to me is very inspirational. But I mean, they got there because of his vision, and they got there because of the way that he was really trying to monitor the performance of his business.
That's huge.
Right. So, I mean, if I could even implement maybe 10% of that, I mean, I'd be in an entirely different situation.
Yeah. Well, as you become a more experienced entrepreneur, those things start to come more easy to you, easier to you. And that's something that, I've seen over the years, especially the past couple. Like, there was a lot of waste, and I started looking at some of the services that I was some of the services that I was using, and I said, they're not worth what they used to be in my business, because my business has shifted a little bit. So we discontinued those services, because I'm not going to pay that kind of money for something that I'm barely using, right? Or using at a fractional pace versus how I used to use them. So those are things that you definitely want to pay attention to. But we'll get into the how-to stuff on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Again, I don't want to give away too much of the farm, but I just wanted to address some of those questions that Priyanka asked, and I thought that was a really great question. So big shout out to Amy, big shout out to Michelle again for joining us live, and also Priyanka as well. Guys, we'll see you at 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, and that topic is going to be specifically how to attract the right customers by leveraging the right positioning, the right messaging, and the right visual aesthetic. I think that's going to be really helpful for you guys. You may not be the one implementing this. You may be delegating this type of information, but this information is going to be extremely valuable for you, so that we help you get the right clients coming in the sales pipeline. Right message, right clients, the right results. And that's what it's coming down to. So guys, real quick, before we punch out of here, again, if you need help with this stuff, if you need an outside perspective, somebody that has this kind of experience, go book a one-on-one assessment with me. Just go to the URL here, click that yellow button, follow the instructions, and you and I will be on a Zoom, and we will hash out those challenges, and we will find the right solution for you, whether it be with me or someone on my Rolodex. So have an amazing day, guys, and we will catch you on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Take care.